reveal the system of the pits around the burial by some ground signs without touching the landscape, which is so delicate. Sorry. But you see, for instance, this is the enclosure of the main tomb. The tomb is here. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a good picture because all those signs of the sketch have been built, but they're not really visible because there's no grass in this season. And you see here, for instance, one of the gates. Again, it's a gate in style. And here you can see the other gate by Professor Chen, which just show the archaeological founding, no more. And the museum, which is sunken, is disappeared under the ground. Nothing to destroy the landscape, nothing like you see this fancy garden, for instance, which have nothing to do with the archaeological remains, with the historical reality, which just show the history and not the fancy. So the voyage starts going underground with this system of ramps, and the ramps is the first narrative device that bring you deep down into the ground, near the burial, without having the possibility to enter, to visit the tombs of the different pits. So the second device is a transparent gallery path that leads you to pass over the pits. When you pass here, you can see the things excavated with all the remains, with everything that archaeologists saw, and maybe also the archaeologists working. So it's wonderful because you really feel the emotion to go into the ground and to discover, as you were the first one to open the tombs. It's a beautiful experience, but nothing is visible on the ground. And that enhancement, the last one. Ah, grazie. Sono tornata col mal di gola da inquinamento.
Anche qua non si scherza. Anche qua non si scherza.
No, non hai idea.
Va bene, sono un po' più.
Non hai idea. Io non ho mai provato una roba del genere in vita. Lo stordimento, la testa.
Ma eri dove esattamente?
Ho girato, no, non ero uscita in altre città, da Pechino, eccetera, ma da morire. Io non sono mai stata così male. Perché c'ho il riscaldamento acceso adesso, infatti non vado mai di stesso accesa, una roba da morire. La testa. Is your city? No. Io? 19? South?
Non abbiamo capito il trasferimento, ma oggi lo spieghi.
Ce l'ho, aspetta che ho un po' d'acqua. Faccio un passaggio perché un po' ne ho bisogno, non mi ero dimenticato.
Eccolo, fermo.
Vabbè, prendila.
No, non mi voglio battere.
Al volo, ho presa. Scusa, me l'ho dimenticato. Avevo la scorta in tasca.
So, this is a different subject, relating, for instance, to industrial heritage, which in cities where everything has been erased appears for me like a possibility to keep some complexity into the fabric. Here we are in 19, and we see the factory, which is a very, let's say, banal building before and after. And also the reconstruction. After they demolished all the traditional buildings, they reconstructed inside as usual. And the museum is nestled in the middle. So here you see the process of Professor Chen works, in which he tried to imagine how to summarize the fabric that has been destroyed into a pattern that could be overlapped to the building without substituting the building, creating a void between the new facade and the old facade so that the two are still existing and visible, and at the same time to repropose the typical courtyard house and the typical landscape of the roof that was visible in Nanjing, and to, like in a film Inception, and you, I don't know in English, ribaltare, you project it into the other plane. And here you see the relationship, quite strong building, let's say, between the fake old and the new. So a sort of dynamic relationship, and some real old building which belongs to the factory instead. And here another situation, which is in Xi'an again, and it's a Cultural Revolution building, very ugly building, very mediocre building, but which has acquired a new life. I like this building very, very much. We kept our workshop here, and all the students love this place so much because it's what Khan says, a good place to stay, to work, to study. It's a good atmosphere. And this idea, again, of the Chinese roof, which slopes and creates like a gallery, revealing the old facade, but playing with the light. Every hour of the day, the light changes, these shadows changes. And it's very interesting, the, let's say, philosophical approach, because this building was the Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution erased everything that was art, that was culture. So it's like a revenge of history, that this building was transformed into an art gallery for Tia Pinhua writer, and that this mediocrity finds a new way, just with an element which recalls another quality of the city, another feature of the city, which were this complex slope, this complex landscape that again sliding down the roof to take the place of the facade. And here you can see the building as it was before, and this part which has been substituted by this triangular display of the easel. And to finish, the 5 dragons temple restoration and enhancement. This is another case. This is the case of a very, very, very old, again, temple. They say this is the oldest Tang temple in China. And again, this idea of old Tang temple, it means that this temple was there since the Tang style, but has been, as usual, remade and all the same. But it lays in a very small village, very difficult to reach. It takes a lot of time to go there. In the past, even more, because now there's a new road. So the people is very poor, they work in the fields, and this was the state of abandonment of the oldest temple in China, which structure is very simple, and it was coupled, as usual, along an axis with a theater, which is Ming period, so much later. And here you can see the kind of landscape you have arrived, very humble, very simple countryside, beautiful in potential. So one way of Urbanus with the banque industry came to Expo, came to our department to ask to be sustained to make this conservation project, to rehabilitate this area and to make something that could be at the same time something useful for the village and to make the people aware of the treasure of this space, and at the same time to make more interesting a place that in that moment was just a wall with a very small temple inside, with very few possibilities to attract people there, because the journey is so long, it's so detached by everything, and there's almost nothing to see about this small temple. So the new design was not just the conservation of the temple, which I think was made following the usual criteria, but what is interesting and at the same time troublesome is what has been created around this. So the courtyards along the axis is kept, but all around a system of walls introduce like a narrative experience to the site. We can see the axonometry and the different phases of design. Here there was the dragon spring, that was the spring that in the past, very ancient past, the spring of the dragon ensured with its water the fertility of the land. Now it's just an abandoned site with nothing, but in the past it was a holy, very important sacred space. So he created this kind of arrangement to frame and make readable again the dragon spring, and at the same time a vestibule for the narrative path that brings to upstairs to the temple, and recreating a stairway using the systems of the wall and restoring in the Chinese way the yaodong, which are these caves houses like carved into the earth. As you can see, the shape is not the same. The wall, the caves have been totally remade. They were not kept as they stand. So here you can see the arrangement and the path. It's like a ceremonial path to reach the place by a sequence of artifacts like the ramp and all the experience you can find. You see here is totally brand new, remade. The ruin is not conceived. We cannot keep ruins. Everything must look very, very, very new. And it's beautiful, but maybe could be beautiful even if they left the signs of time. And the stairs again. And then you enter, and before discovering the temples, you have a system of walls which display the history of the hall in China. So all the major hall, all the oldest hall, so that the people, it's like an open air teaching school about the history of the site. And then through these walls, before reaching the temples, the opening on the wall introduced to other spaces, which for instance tell the history of the Dougong, of the Chinese order, of the system of the bracket sets, like big models. And then finally, you reach the small, tiny, ancient temple, which I like this project very much, but at the same time, it looks like a pretext for all this design, which is much more important than the poor tiny temple itself, which has been restored and also looks a little bit new. But it's loved by the people, and it's a place like a public space for the people now. Here you see the landscape and how Wang Hui was really good drawer, like almost all Chinese architects. They are trained to sketch by hand a lot, try to express itself, finding the relationship between the two, the temple and the theater, and the ancillary spaces in which people could find spaces for memory, for our public activity also. And here you see the court of the Dougong, where the temple is tiny, is simple, but here all the history of China is recalled. All the history of the Tang style, with the most important building, the most important variation of the style, like model. So again, this idea that in absence of history, we need a narrative design to teach people. And this narrative design is not produced, as UNESCO would say, by presentation, like audiovisual, a guide, but through architecture itself. Architecture can be a tool to talk about history, architectural space, architectural device, and not just written or panels installation. Of course, we can be critical about some interesting architectural solutions, but they do not belong to Chinese culture. I know that this project has created a very strong debate in China, because of course it's something nobody has done something like this in the oldest temple of China. not choosing the style. They